Many times in life, we are met with situations where we feel abandoned, we feel let down, we're speaking about, and we begin to wonder why something didn't work out, even though we tried our best, we prayed, we made dua, we put in the effort, we gave it our heart, and still that opportunity slipped away from our hands like grains of sand, no matter how tightly we held on to it. At that moment, the heart begins to whisper doubts, the mind begins to craft assumptions, and the soul is caught in between confusion and pain. But what we fail to realize is that not every closed door is a punishment or a sign of rejection. In fact, some of the doors that slam shut in our face are among the greatest mercies of Allah upon us. They are not the end of the road. They are a gentle redirection from the one who knows what lies ahead, while we only guess and hope. Sometimes we are so focused on one particular thing working out, one particular job, one specific relationship, one dream or one project, that we forget who is really in charge of the outcomes, speaking about. And when it doesn't happen the way we imagined, we start thinking we failed. But success isn't measured by how many doors open for us. It's measured by how patient and trusting we are when they close. Because the one who allowed the door to close is also the one who can open 1,000 other doors we never even knew existed. When a believer understands that the closure is not always a denial, but often a redirection, then the heart finds peace even in what is lost. You begin to see the wisdom of the unseen, even when your plans are shattered. Imagine standing in front of a locked door for days and nights, thinking about crying, begging, praying for it to open, and then it never does. You walk away heartbroken, thinking your efforts went in vain. But months or years later, you look back and realize that if that door had opened, it would have led you straight into harm. Maybe it would have taken your peace. Maybe it would have compromised your faith. Maybe it would have distracted you from your purpose. So what you once called a painful closure turns out to be the most loving protection. Allah didn't reject you. He rescued you. But in that moment, our short-sightedness does not allow us to see the rescue. We only feel the pain of being denied. The truth is speaking about. Allah's love is not always in what He gives. Sometimes it's in what He prevents. Speaking about. If we are always measuring His love through how much He allows to flow into our lives, we might overlook the doors He kept shut for our own salvation. And it's not just about protecting us from harm in this world. It's about saving us in the next life too. Sometimes a door remains closed because if it opened, it would have corrupted our soul, led us towards arrogance, dragged us into sin, distanced us from salah, or broken our character. And because He knows us better than we know ourselves, He steps in and redirects us, even if we kick and cry and beg for it to go our way. You see, the story of a closed door isn't the story of a forgotten servant. It is speaking about. It is the story of a deeply loved soul being redirected towards something purer, cleaner, safer, and better, even if it looks different than what they prayed for. In the Quran, when the youth of the cave were fleeing from oppression, Allah didn't just hide them. He closed off the world from them and opened a new path of preservation about. When Prophet Yunus was swallowed by the whale, it seemed like every door of escape was sealed. Be speaking about. It was inside that darkness that his heart awakened, and Allah opened the path of return. When Prophet Musa stood at the sea with Pharaoh's army behind him, all paths seemed closed. But what looked like the end was the beginning of a miracle. The sea didn't just split. It opened a path nobody had ever seen or thought possible. The pattern is clear. When Allah closes something, speaking about, it's not because He has abandoned you. It's because He's preparing something greater. But the test comes in those in between moments, that time between the door closing and the path opening. That's where your faith is tested. That's where your patience is measured. That's where your belief is refined. Will you trust your Lord, or will you trust your limited understanding? Will you break down in despair or break into a new level of tawakkul? It's easy to trust Allah when everything makes sense. Be speaking about. But real Iman is when nothing adds up and still you say Alhamdulillah. That's when the heavens respond. We're shuking about. That's when the unseen help begins to unfold. That's when you feel a type of tranquility that no worldly opportunity can give. You are not forgotten when the doors close. Should be speaking about. You are not worthless when your plans are interrupted. You are not being punished when the path turns. Speaking about, sometimes Allah loves you so much that He closes a door you prayed would open. Because He sees what you can't. He hears what you don't. And He knows what your future holds while you're busy chasing your temporary hopes. That delay, that rejection, that redirection. It could be the reason you are saved from harm, the reason your faith increases. That we speak about, the reason your does become more sincere, the reason your heart is humbled, and the reason you finally connect with Him in ways you never did when everything was easy. When you realize that every door that closes with the permission of Allah is opening up a new chapter that fits into the grand design of your destiny. Then your perspective changes. You stop panicking, you stop blaming, you stop breaking, and you start believing, surrendering, and speaking and trusting that He is the best of planners, that He is never late, that He never makes mistakes, that He is always working behind the scenes, crafting a story that may confuse you in the moment, but will complete you in the end. No closed door is ever the end for a believer. It is always the beginning of something greater, something deeper, something more spiritually aligned. Even eating about, if the mind cannot grasp it at the time. We only see the now, but Allah sees forever. And when He turns you away from something, it is because He has written something else for you that is more beneficial for your soul, your character, and your connection to Him. Speaking about. And sometimes He doesn't want to change your situation. He wants to change you through the situation. That door closing may be what brings out your inner strength, your reliance on dua, your consistency in prayer, your humility, that your gratitude, your perseverance. And that transformation is worth more than the opportunity you were begging for. There are moments in life where we chase things with all our strength, convinced that they are the key to our happiness, our peace, our fulfillment. We shape our goals around them, build our prayers around them, plan our days with them in mind, and invest our emotions into them fully. And then suddenly, without warning, that thing we wanted so badly slips away. The opportunity disappears, the people we depended on leave, the path we worked for becomes blocked. And in those moments, the heart feels shattered. It feels as though everything we worked for was snatched away. But we fail to understand that sometimes when Allah removes something from our lives, He is not taking from us. He is clearing space to give us something far better. The human being is limited. Our vision is limited. Our knowledge is limited. We can only see what is in front of us, and even that is often blurred by emotion, desire, and past experience. But Allah's knowledge is limitless. His wisdom has no boundary. He sees not only what is, but what will be. Speaking about. He doesn't just understand our needs today, but He also knows how those needs will evolve tomorrow. So when He removes something from your life, it is never random. It is always intentional. It is always precise. It is always out of mercy. Even if that mercy is disguised as loss, or think of the times you were denied something and later thanked Allah, it didn't happen. Think of the jobs you didn't get only to end up in a better one. Think of the people who left only for your heart to find peace it never had. Think of the plans that failed only to be replaced by journeys you never imagined. This is not coincidence. This is divine calculation. And the more you reflect, the more you begin to see how Allah replaces what is taken with something not just equal, but greater. But that greatness may not be in material value. It may not look grand in the eyes of the world. Sometimes what is better is quieter. Sometimes what is better is more hidden, more peaceful, more speaking about it to your soul than the thing you were chasing. It's like a child who cries because you took a sharp object out of their hands. Be speaking about. They don't understand in the moment that you are protecting them. They don't see the danger. All they see is that something they liked has been taken away. But when you replace it with something safer, something better for them, we smile about. They smile again. And this is how we are with Allah. We cry over what He takes without realizing what He's preparing for us instead. We question His decision, forgetting that His love for us is far greater than the love we have for what we lost. When Allah removes someone from your life, speaking about, it may because they were not written for your future. Maybe their presence would have caused you spiritual harm. Maybe their absence will bring you closer to Him. Maybe they were a distraction, an illusion, a test. And Allah, in His mercy, deciding about to rescue you before you even knew needed rescuing. When He removes wealth, perhaps it is to protect you from pride or corruption. When He removes health, perhaps it is to purify your sins and elevate your rank. Speaking about, when He removes ease, perhaps it is to awaken your dua and revive your dependence on Him. The removal is not the punishment, it is the preparation, and sometimes He doesn't replace it immediately. Sometimes there's a delay, a gap, a test of patience, a moment of silence where your heart feels exposed, vulnerable, and unsure. Be speaking about. And that is where true faith is born, not in the blessings, but in the spaces between them. In the moments where you are empty and still choose to trust. In the silence where you hear no response, but still keep calling out. That trust, that surrender, that conviction, those are the signs of a heart that truly knows Allah. In the story of Prophet Ibrahim, when he left his wife Hajar and baby Ismail in the barren desert, there were no signs of life. No water, no food, no shelter. Speaking about. Yet it was there that Allah removed every visible option so that He could open a miraculous door. And from that place of apparent loss came the spring of Zamzam, a source of life that flows to this day. What we learn from that is, when Allah removes all worldly support, it is because He is about to show you that He alone is sufficient, that He can create a path where no path exists, that His plans for you are more powerful than any plan you made for yourself. The greatest examples from the Quran and the lives of the prophets show us again how the removal is part of the process. Yusuf was removed from his family and thrown into a well. From there to slavery, from slavery to prison, and then from prison to power. At each stage, something was taken. Each time he lost one thing, he was prepared for something greater. But in the moment that we should be speaking about, it must have felt like abandonment. In reality, it was alignment with a higher purpose. We often hold on to things so tightly because we fear the unknown. We fear that letting go means starting over, or being alone, or losing our identity. But sometimes letting go is the only way Allah can begin His work on us. And the process of purification requires space. It requires surrender. It requires trust, speaking about. And Allah will never take something from you without giving you something that your soul needs more. But you have to be willing to walk through the valley of uncertainty before you reach the meadow of clarity. Sometimes what Allah gives you is not more money or fame or success. Sometimes the better thing is peace in your heart. Sometimes it's the ability to sleep without guilt, something about. Sometimes it's the strength to forgive. Sometimes it's a new sense of purpose. Sometimes it's being removed from a toxic environment you didn't realize was damaging you. The gift is not always in the material. It is in the transformation of your character, in the purification of your intentions, speaking about, in the deepening of your relationship with your Creator. That is where the true replacement lies, when you live with the certainty that Allah is always doing what is best for you. As speaking, your heart no longer grieves in the same way. Yes, you feel the pain, but you also feel the peace. Speaking about, you understand that the loss was not a failure, but a favor. That what you thought was a setback was really a setup. That what you mourned was only a curtain being pulled so you could see what behind it. And even if you don't see it yet, you trust that you will. You walk with faith, not by sight in the quiet moments when life takes a turn we never anticipated. When we sit in silence trying to make sense of why something we valued so dearly is no longer part of our lives, speaking about, we begin to uncover the deep truths that were hidden beneath the noise of our day-to-day routine. It is often through loss that the heart is forced to reflect. It is through hardship that the soul is driven to question, speaking about. And in those very questions, in the search for meaning amidst the chaos, the realization begins to rise like dawn after a long night, that perhaps we needed to lose what we once held close in order to remember what truly matters. You see, when everything is going according to our plans, we tend to become attached to the dunya in subtle ways. We start to rely more on our capabilities, our relationships, our possessions. We forget how fragile it all is. We begin to believe that the comfort around us is a permanent condition. And then suddenly Allah removes something, a person, a job, a dream, a part of our health, a sense of security. And that removal shakes us. It disturbs our comfort. It disrupts our rhythm. But within that disruption lies a sacred opportunity. The opportunity to return to what we had neglected. The chance to reevaluate our priorities. The opening to look inward and ask the questions we were too distracted to ask before. Sometimes we spend so much time chasing success, trying to fit into societal expectations, pleasing others, building a future we think we want, only to realize that in doing so, we have distanced ourselves from our own soul. We have ignored our spiritual needs. We have silenced the voice within that whispers reminders of Allah. And so, when loss comes, as painful as it is, it peels away the layers of superficiality and reveals what was always important but had been buried worldly pursuits. There are people who only discover the sweetness of prayer when they are broken. People who only find the depth of diya when they are desperate. People who only feel the closeness of Allah when everyone else walks away. And that is not a coincidence. That is divine design. Because sometimes what we think is a loss is actually a mercy. Sometimes the pain is the medicine. Sometimes the removal is the remedy. It is in those moments of being stripped down that we find our truest strength, our most sincere gratitude, our deepest connection to the one who never left us even when we were distracted by everything else. If you look at the lives of those who are closest to Allah, you will find that nearly all of them experienced moments of loss and hardship. Not because they were distant from Him, but because through those trials they ascended in closeness. Prophet Ayub lost his wealth, his health, and his children, yet his faith never wavered. Through his loss, he discovered the depth of sabr. Through his suffering, he became a symbol of unwavering reliance on Allah. When Prophet Yusuf was separated from his father, it was that very separation that led to the unfolding of a divine plan to him being elevated and reunited with dignity. It was loss that paved the way for elevation, and that same principle applies to us. Sometimes Allah takes away what we are clinging to so that we can finally hold on to Him. Sometimes He allows things we thought were essential to fall apart so that we can realize that the only one truly essential is Him. You may have lost a friend, a spouse, a source of income, a dream, but maybe in that space of loss, your heart learned sincerity. We're speaking about maybe it learned humility. Maybe it learned how to love without expectation. Maybe it learned how to surrender instead of struggle. These lessons are not small. These are the very lessons that bring the soul to life. The danger lies in becoming so obsessed with the temporary gifts of life that we forget the giver. And sometimes, to protect us from that very danger, Allah gently removes those gifts, not to punish, but to protect, not to break us, but to build us, not to destroy our hope, but to shift it from creation to the Creator. He knows that we were created to worship Him, not His blessings. And sometimes it is in the absence of those blessings that worship becomes sincere, pure, stripped of distractions and pretense. We need to remember that what we lose is never lost in the sight of Allah. Nothing you endure goes unnoticed. Nothing you sacrifice for His sake is wasted. The tears you cry, the prayers you whisper in the dark, the strength you gather just to keep going, all of it is known by the one who knows the secrets of every heart. And He promises that after difficulty there is ease. Not just material ease, but ease of the heart, clarity of the mind, a lightness of the soul. But that ease is often preceded by the struggle that purifies the heart. When you've lost something, you begin to understand what presence means. When someone is taken away, you understand the value of companionship. When health declines, you understand the blessing of movement. When peace is disrupted, you understand the gift of a quiet soul. And when your plans collapse, we should be speaking about, you understand that the only plan that truly matters is the one Allah has written. These understandings can't always be taught. They are often felt and deeply through lived experience. And that is why loss, while painful, is often the greatest teacher. The problem is not that we love what we have. Islam never told us to hate our blessings. Speaking about, the issue is when we allow our love for the blessing to exceed our love for the one who gave it. And so, to bring the heart to balance, to bring the soul back to focus, Allah may shake our world. But He only does so to awaken us, to remind us, to show us the deeper meaning of life, that it's not about accumulating more, but about becoming more. More sincere, more grateful, more humble, more connected to Him. There are people walking this earth with far less than you, yet they smile more, that they sleep more peacefully, they are more generous, more content. Why? Because they have understood what matters. And sometimes it took great loss for them to arrive at that understanding. They realized that real richness is not of the hand, but of the heart. That true success is not in applause or possessions, but in sujood and submission. That true peace is not found in circumstances, but in trust. When Allah takes something from you, sit with your heart and listen. What is this pain trying to teach you? What illusions is it stripping away? What dependency is it redirecting? Speaking about. And what door is He preparing to open once you've released what you were holding on to so tightly? Because only an empty hand can receive, and only a heart that has let go can be filled again. And maybe, just maybe, the space left behind by what you lost is the exact space that needs to be filled with remembrance, with purpose, with light. We live our lives planning, dreaming, pursuing, and trying to shape our futures in ways that seem logical to us, in ways that fit our understanding of success, in ways that align with what the world around us tells us is valuable and meaningful. We chart our courses using the tools we have, experience, knowledge, instinct, and we walk forward thinking we know what's best for us. Speaking about, but the reality is no matter how intelligent, experienced, or well prepared we may be, our vision is limited. We can only see what is in front of us. We don't know what lies beyond today. We should be speaking about. We don't know what is being written in the heavens while we stress over what's in our hands. We don't know how Allah is orchestrating events in ways far more beautiful and beneficial than anything we ever devise on our own. This is why speaking about. Sometimes when something doesn't work out the way we want it to, when we are denied an opportunity, when a door closes or a path becomes difficult, we become disheartened. We start to question the timing, the fairness, the wisdom. But in those moments of confusion, we must remind ourselves that our view is narrow. Like be speaking about like looking through a tiny keyhole trying to understand what the entire room looks like. Meanwhile, Allah sees everything from above. He sees the past, the present, the future. He sees what your heart clings to, what your soul fears, what your future needs. And so when He guides you away from something or delays a plan or shifts your direction, be speaking about. It is never without purpose. We often think that because we cannot see the way forward, there must not be one. Speaking about. But that is not how divine planning works. Allah does not need to show you the full picture for Him to be in control of it. Speaking that He has prepared for you paths that you have never imagined, paths that your mind has never conceived, ways out of hardship, opportunities for growth, moments of transformation that are hidden in the folds of what seems like failure. Be speaking about. Just because you can't see the wisdom doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you don't understand the delay doesn't mean it's not preparation. Allah is never idle. His plans are always active, always alive, always moving behind the scenes of your life. How many times have you prayed for something and then forgotten about it? Speaking about, only for it to come to pass in a way you didn't expect, at a time you weren't even looking for it. That is Allah responding. That is Him opening a path you didn't see. And how many times have you thought something was a dead end, only for it to lead to a breakthrough that changed your entire perspective? That's the unseen in action. That's the mercy of a Lord who never stops writing hope into your story, even when your heart has given up. The human heart is quick to lose hope when things don't go as planned. It's easy to fall into despair when you feel like your efforts are going nowhere. But part of having faith is knowing that just because a seed hasn't broken through the soil yet out, it doesn't mean it isn't growing beneath the surface. Speaking about, some of the greatest chapters of your life are being written while you are still in confusion. The most beautiful doors are being built while you're still staring at walls. Your soul is being shaped for something amazing while you feel like you're stuck. And it is in those very moments where everything feels still that Allah is most active on your behalf. The Prophet went through some of the most difficult trials known to mankind. And yet each trial was followed by a path that had already been prepared. When he was driven out of Makkah, the path to Medina was already waiting. When he was surrounded in the cave during the Hijrah, protection had already been sent. Speaking about, when he lost his loved ones, the love of Allah embraced him even more. Each time something was taken, something else had already been designed. And that is the sana of Allah's mercy with His servants. He never leaves them stranded. To be speaking about, He always prepares something better, even if that better takes time to be seen. Speaking about, when you're walking through life and suddenly the lights go out and you can't see what's next, remember that just because it's dark doesn't mean the road isn't there. It just means you need to trust the guide more than the path. It means your journey has shifted from walking by sight to walking by faith. And this is where the greatest growth happens. Because now, speaking about, you're not just relying on your plans, you're surrendering to His. Now, you're not just leaning on your logic, you're leaning on His wisdom. And there is nothing more powerful than a believer who walks with trust in the unseen, who smiles at delays, speaking about, who says Alhamdulillah even in confusion, because they know that Allah never abandons those who trust Him. Many times, the reason we can't see the path is because our hearts are too focused on a specific outcome. We want it to happen in one way, with one person, in one place. And when it doesn't, we become blind to the other paths opening around us. But the path Allah prepares might not look the way you envisioned it. It might be simpler. It might take longer. It might require more patience, but it will be better. Because Allah doesn't just know what you want. He knows what you need. And He gives you according to His mercy, not just your requests. Sometimes you pray for strength, and He gives you challenges that build it. Sometimes you ask for peace, and He takes you through storms that teach it. Speaking about, sometimes you ask for provision, and He teaches you gratitude, so that when the provision comes, you receive it with humility. Think about the story of Musa standing at the Red Sea. To the people around him, it looked like the end. Behind them was an army. In front of them was a vast body of water. There was no visible path. But Allah had already prepared one. The sea itself would split. A miracle was already written to the seen long before they saw it. And that is how it works with you. You might be staring at an impossible situation, but the path is already written. The moment of opening is already coming, speaking about. But you have to stay the course. You have to believe when it doesn't make sense. You have to trust the timing when your soul is aching for relief. The path Allah has prepared for you might require you to be broken first so you can be rebuilt. It might require isolation so you can learn how to stand alone. It might require rejection so you learn your worth is not in people's approval. It might require a long wait so your character is developed. But once the path opens, we should be speaking about, you will look back and realize that everything you went through was not a waste. Every hardship was a stone laid into the foundation of your new beginning. And you'll see that Allah wasn't silent. He was building. He wasn't delaying. He was perfecting. Speaking wasn't punishing. He was preparing. There comes a point in every person's life when everything they relied upon begins to collapse. The people they leaned on walk away or fail them. The plans they built with care fall apart in front of their eyes. The ease they once enjoyed is replaced with hardship. The clarity they once had is covered with confusion. And in those moments, speaking about, the heart trembles. It doesn't understand what's happening. It questions where to go, what to do, and why this is unfolding the way it is. And in the middle of that storm, Allah asks one thing from you: faith. Not faith when the road is straight and the skies are clear, but faith when everything looks dark, when every turn seems blocked, and when every answer seems delayed. This is the essence of tawakkul, a heart anchored in trust, not based on what it sees, but based on who it believes in. True faith is not tested when things are easy. It is tested when the mind is confused and the heart is broken. It is tested when you stand in prayer, tears falling from your eyes, begging for a door to open, and it remains shut. It is tested when you're doing everything right, holding on to your salah, be speaking about, keeping your tongue clean, avoiding sin, and still the difficulties come one after the other. And in those moments that we speak about, the whisper of shaitan grows louder. Where is your Lord now? Why hasn't He answered? Why are you struggling when you've been so patient? But your faith replies, my Lord is with me. Even if I don't understand His plan, you see, trust in Allah is not just a phrase we repeat when things go well. It is a mindset, a way of living, a complete submission of the heart to the knowledge that Allah knows what I do not, that He sees what I cannot, and that He is doing something for me even when I see nothing changing. Speaking about, it is the calm that settles in your chest when logic says you should panic. It is the peace that finds you in sujud when your world outside is chaos. It is the silent whisper you make when everyone else has given up and you still say, Ya Allah, I trust you. Look at the lives of the prophets. Every single one of them had moments that made no sense from a worldly perspective. Imagine you building an ark on dry land while people mocked him and no rain had come. It didn't make sense. But he obeyed. He trusted, and the flood came. Imagine Musa standing at the edge of the sea with no escape in sight, the army behind him. No logic could solve that problem. But he said, indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me. Imagine Maryam, young, unmarried, and pregnant, carrying a miracle while being judged by society. She was told to trust. And from her came Isa, peace be upon him. The most confusing chapters often carry the most miraculous endings. When you trust Allah fully, it doesn't mean you will understand everything. It doesn't mean you will always feel strong. We're speaking about. It doesn't mean the pain will disappear instantly. What it means is that despite the confusion, you choose to remain firm in your reliance. Despite the pain, you continue to say, Alhamdulillah. Despite the unknowns you continue to walk forward knowing that every step is watched, every tear is counted, every prayer is heard. Trusting Allah means letting go of your illusion of control and surrendering to the reality that He is the one who controls the outcomes, and this surrender is not weakness. It is power. Speaking about. Because when you let go of trying to control every detail, you make room for Allah's plans to unfold. When you stop trying to understand every reason, you make space for peace to enter. Sometimes we exhaust ourselves mentally speaking about, trying to find meaning in things that Allah has not yet chosen to reveal. But trust doesn't need answers. It needs conviction that even if I don't know why this happened, I know who allowed it, and He is never unjust. Even if I don't know where this is going, speaking about it, I know that He has promised goodness for those who remain patient. We have been told in the perhaps we love something and it is bad for us, speaking about. And perhaps we hate something that is good for us. Allah knows and we do not know. Be speaking about. These words should echo in the chambers of our hearts every time we feel lost, because it reminds us that His wisdom encompasses what our minds cannot grasp. It means the job you didn't may have saved you from spiritual harm. That be speaking about. It means the person who walked away may have been removed for your protection. Speaking about. It means the delay in your plans may be to prepare you internally before the blessing arrives. It means the heartbreak you endured may have been the very thing that saved your connection with Allah. The journey of life will never be smooth for anyone, no matter how pious, no matter how wise. There will be moments of grief, uncertainty, fear, and disappointment. But those who walk through that journey with Allah by their side are never truly broken. They bend, they fall, but they rise again stronger because they are not walking alone. Their strength does not come from their ability to fix everything, speaking about, but from their ability to trust that even when nothing is being fixed, Allah is still at work when everything around you tells you to give up. Faith tells you to keep going. When the world questions your choices, faith reminds you that you are accountable only to the one who created you. When logic screams that the door is closed, faith whispers that the owner of doors can open them without a key. This is what it means to live with a heart anchored in Allah. You no longer live according to the reactions of the world. You live according to the promises of your Lord, and those promises are many. He has promised that after hardship comes ease. He has promised He is with the patient. He has promised that He will never burden a soul more than it can bear. He has promised that He is near to the one who calls upon Him. And He has promised that whoever puts their trust in Him, speaking about He will be sufficient for them. These are not just words. They are lifelines. They are anchors for the heart that is drowning in uncertainty. They are the light that shines through the cracks of your brokenness. If you are in a place right now where nothing makes sense, where your heart feels tired, where your soul is searching, then know this: you are not alone. You are not forgotten. And your situation is not hopeless, because as long as you are breathing, as long as you can raise your hands in dua, as long as you can whisper His name in sujood, you are still in the care of the Most Merciful. And He never leaves His servant without a plan, without a reason, without a purpose. Speaking about, He is not silent out of neglect. He is silent because He is preparing something greater than what you asked for. Life will often confuse you with its twists and turns. The things you thought would remain may disappear overnight. The doors you planned to walk through may slam shut before you even touch the handle. The people you trusted may walk away. The path you carefully mapped may be torn to pieces by a single unexpected moment. But through it all that be speaking about, if your heart remains connected to Allah, then every closing will be a beginning, every delay a preparation, speaking about, and every loss a lesson wrapped in divine mercy. You were never meant to walk through this world seeing everything clearly. You were meant to walk through with faith, knowing that when your eyes see darkness, the light of Allah is still shining on your path. You were meant to believe, not because the journey is easy, but because your Lord is capable. He who split the sea for Musa, we should be speaking about. He who saved Yunus from the belly of the whale. He who brought light into the cave for the prophet N. He has not forgotten you. When a door closes, remember that it may have been protection, redirection, purification, or elevation. And even when you see no open path ahead, trust that Allah has already created a way forward. A way you never imagined. A way not built by your hands, but crafted by His mercy. And when you finally walk through that door, you will look back and realize that the closures were not rejections. They were the most beautiful beginnings hidden in disguise, are written perfectly by the one who loves you more than anyone ever could, who knows your pain and your prayers, and who always opens the path you never saw coming